Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. And we are back as a trio this evening. Mark, myself, and Peter all tuning in for what is likely to be an incredibly busy show. We've got an absolute barrel load of stuff to get through. So welcome to everyone. Hope that you can get involved and enjoy the show. Before we get into anything, just a few bits of usual admin. So we are indeed in partnership with Petre's Bulinews that he writes for alongside Runa, who we do the fantasy football show with, and of course the brilliant Bundesliga boxes. And please do make sure you smash a like on the video, comment along, whether it's live right now or subsequently, whatever your thoughts are on the games that have gone, deadline day, Pokal, whatever it is, we'll answer it all during the show. And please do make sure that you subscribe to the channel and make sure that you don't miss out on any of the brilliant content that is coming out. Right, so order of play, lads. We're gonna do a bit of a transfer deadline day roundup first, then match week 18 review. Before we do, and during which we'll bring you updates as to goals flying in the evening Pokal match between Union and Wolfsburg, and it's 1-1 as things stand. But before we do, we've already had one Pokal match, and it was a bit nip and tuck, boys, but the lads have done it. We're through. Stuttgart are through. A very harem-scarum, say performance, but end of the match. So, Stuttgart, the first team through to the quarterfinals. I think the first time since 2015-16, roughly speaking. So it's about time that they got themselves back into that part of the tournament and maybe a nice distraction from what's been happening in the league. I'll open it up to the floor as to what we thought about the own goal to start with, maybe.
You should most certainly check it out. I'm sure it's up on YouTube by now. Kostas Mavropanos just put a little bit too much pep on a back pass towards keeper Florian Müller, who himself had a very poor match in the most recent Bundesliga Matchday, set up a two-man wall with Dominik Szoboszlai 30 yards out dead center. So some embarrassing things going on for Stuttgart at the back, but as Rory is, I'm sure, very, very pleased to know, not only did Sehu Guirassy score the winner, but new signing, Gil Dias, the Portuguese journeyman, who has played for, 8 different clubs now at this point, has completed just his second transfer in his career. He's been loaned out more than Taiwo Awoniyi was before he joined Union. But he got a goal as well. He got the equalizer 5 minutes from time. Heartbreak for the East Westphalians. They certainly had hopes of making it past this year and almost got there thanks to the Stuttgart mistake. But Rory's in a good mood. Bruno Labbadia has his first win since returning to VfB Stuttgart. And there's something hopeful. If we want to discuss the match day, we have different stories to discuss, but something a little hopeful for Rory.
Yeah, pretty much.
Who's obviously it's one. Oh yes, it's one step closer as well to a dream quarterfinal between Nuremberg and Stuttgart as well. That's what we've all been hoping for on the show, isn't it? I mean, obviously Nuremberg hosting Fortuna Düsseldorf this time next week, so hopefully an FCN win there, and then it's going to be the dream tie in the Max Morlock Stadion for the last 8, Rory.
That would be fantastic, to be fair. I would pay anything to watch that game. That would be fantastic. So, one club through out of mine and Mark's dear sides. Fingers crossed for you boys next week. We shall move on anyway, because it is deadline day and there has been some interesting moves in the last 24 hours. So what I think we can do is maybe just kind of go over some of the bigger moves and look at teams that have done well or done badly. Maybe starting with the German champions, seen some, the ins have come in regards to the likes of Sommer and Daily Blind, which are fairly of bring for coverage, but now seen them snatch João Cancelo off Man City, and looks like Marcel Sabitzer has also just gone out the door to my boys, Manchester United, to cover for the Christian Eriksen injury. Otherwise, I can't see why United would have done that otherwise. So what do we think to Bayern's market so far? I guess they're fairly happy with letting Sabitzer out because he wasn't really playing that much anyhow.
Yes, they certainly didn't need Marcel Sabitzer anymore. And of course, Bayern were able to secure Jan Sommer. That was probably the most important transfer for the defending champions during this current window, considering Manuel Neuer is all laid up after that skiing accident, I should say, to be precise. This, as sensational as it was, this Cancelo transfer doesn't really fix the problems that Bayern have at the moment. As Bundesliga fans know, these 3 1-1 draws that Bayern have just gone through, they've been unable to really crack the 1.0 XG mark in any of them. Nagelsmann found himself out-tacticked by Stefan Baumgart, in my personal opinion, midweek against Köln, and once again by Oliver Glasner this weekend against Frankfurt. And Nagelsmann has stated what he believes the problem is, namely that his team is not playing through the center. They have speed on the flanks. They have more than enough speed on the flanks, but he cannot get his midfield central link-up play sorted out. We can go into further depth about that, but the transfer of Cancelo, that does not solve the problem that Nagelsmann has, unfortunately. So tomorrow night in the Pokal, a match that I recommend that everybody gives a look will be FSV Mainz 05 against FC Bayern München. Mainz are coming off a very, very big win over the weekend, 5-2 over Bochum. We could potentially see an upset here. We could see Bayern eliminated from the DFB Pokal for the 3rd consecutive year running. And that is unheard of in German football.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another transfer that stood out to me, which went through today, is over in Eintracht Frankfurt, obviously pushing towards a title this year. I mean, Luca Pellegrini has left the club to go back to Italy, to Juventus Turin. And obviously, the replacement is actually Philip Max. I mean, for me, that's a good replacement because I don't think Pellegrini really did that well, did he, in a Eintracht shirt? I was a little bit underwhelmed by him in the performances that I saw him play. And I'm a big fan of Max. I mean, when he played for Augsburg, he was a real standout for them. You know, he got assists, he got some goals from the left back position. What do you think about that, Peter? Do you think that's a good trade in there for Frankfurt?
Yes, Pellegrini only played 14 matches, mostly in relief. It's actually a somewhat curious signing because, as we know, Glasner's been using wingbacks. And even though there's been an injury to Eric Junior Dina Ebimbe, he has Aurelio Buta, he has Christopher Lenz, he has Ansgar Knauf, who has been operating very, very well as both a right and a left wingback. So it seems like kind of an insurance signing for them. I've not followed Max very closely since when he was at Augsburg. Did he play wingback?
Yeah.
He did on occasion. Okay, because when he played for the German national team, he was always the few instances that he was always a traditional left back. So Frankfurt, my selected sensational pick to win the title. They've gotten off to a sleepy start. A lot of Schlafwagen Fußball. They didn't do well against Schalke. They didn't do well against Freiburg. And they drew Bayern München by playing very, very conservatively, which, okay, they were in this deep 5-4-1. And you can get away with that if Rando Kolomoani is your lead striker and Jesper Lindström, Mario Götze, and later Daichi Kamada are running your transition game. But we'll see. We got to see better from Frankfurt if they're going to be title contenders. Philip Max on the left, Ansgar Knauf or Buta on the right in the wing as wing backs. Could have something. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to some other teams that were slightly busier in the market. Schalke went loan crazy, bringing in everyone that they possibly could on loan. A couple of Bundesliga-based players, so Tim Stark and Niklas Toya from Mainz, but also including 2 defenders, so Maurice Jens and Jere Urunen, who both started at the weekend and obviously, were a part of a team that kept a clean sheet. I can't profess to know lots about the latter two that actually started, but Schalke just trying to reinforce, I guess, anywhere possible, basically. Also bringing in the striker, Fry, who did also start the game, but he will have his limitations, gents, because he's not the most mobile of strikers, is he? So Schalke have done some half-decent business, I think it's fair to say, but is it going to be enough to be able to keep consistent clean sheets and then, get goals at the other end as well, most importantly?
We shall see. Actually, I've been impressed with Schalke's window. When Reuven Schröder, the sporting director, when he got axed in October and Peter Knebel took over, I thought that he was going to run this club just like he did when he took over as acting sporting director back 2021 campaign. Surprisingly, he's not been preparing this team for a year in the second division. He's actually brought in some very, very good targeted reinforcements. I think Jens, they call him, when he was at Glasgow, they called him Mercedes Jens, right?
Very clever.
He's German striker, of course. He's from German center back. He's from Berlin. And I was really impressed with his play there at the back. I also think that Michael Frey, the former Swiss League striker, has done well off the bench. Terodde was actually the one who started in the 0-0 draw against Köln. Marius Bülter has taken a little bit of a dip, but Rodrigo Salazar is back. He can function as the 10. They tried with Jordan Larson for a couple of games, but they eventually had to loan him. They had to park him in Denmark. Skarka looks like he could do some damage up the wings. Kozuki, have you guys had a chance to check him out yet?
Yeah. Great story behind him as well.
The Japanese international, he's 22 years old, but was playing with the youth reserves. And when he was called up and given a senior team contract this winter, all the German football world was buzzing about him, and for good reason. I think he scored his debut goal in the Bundesliga. I think he's a really good player. So we have a lot of different moving components coming into place here. The problem is that they are still the worst team in the league. It's a tough field. It's a tough league. And I don't know, but it's interesting that they made a play for it. Because to be honest with you, if you had asked me a couple months ago, were Schalke even going to try to stay in the league, I would have said no. I would have said absolutely not. They're just going to prepare themselves for the Zweite Liga. But that's not what they're doing. So kudos to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we've just got a question in as well from Jeff Wagner as well, saying also about Max, who's just transferred to Frankfurt. He says, is Max in any way another attempt to fill the Kostic void, or is he a totally different kind of player? That's a fair question, because obviously Kostic left, didn't he, this summer? And obviously the Pellegrini signing didn't really work out as expected. But what would you say there, Peter? Would you say that that's a correct statement, or would you say is it a different kind of player, really?
I think they've done a pretty good job of filling the Kostic void, and that's because Glasner's just played in a very different system. The player that I would liken Philipp Max to he's kind of a discount David Raum, in the sense that he is a very physical bomber down that left-hand flank, and he loves to send crosses in. David Raum, of course, is a big, mean, bad bruiser. You probably observed that in the World Cup. He just simply will not be denied. I mean, it doesn't matter if he has a decent avenue, if he has a decent lane. He's going through anyway. And if he has to knock you over ice hockey check style, he'll do so. Not quite that aggressive, but it's a good question. It's a good question because the Philipp Max signing tells us that Glasner wants to do something more off of that left flank. Does he need it with the transition game that he has set up? Maybe, maybe not. The only thing that concerns me a little bit about Frankfurt, I mean, Kolomoani is obviously doing awesome. Götze is doing a great job. Kamada came off the bench, and that no-look pass assist, oh, good Lord, was that sumptuous. Lindström seems to be kind of dipping in form a little bit. I don't know what's going on with him. Maybe he's distracted, but he's exhibiting some problems with his touch right now. So one component of the Frankfurt counterattack, their transition game, is not doing so well. And we'll see. It's a good question. We'll see what he does. It's a very intriguing signing. I can't wait to see him back in the Bundesliga again. Maybe he can revive his career and get back in on Hansi Flick's radar. That's possible.
Yeah. I think he was linked with Bremen as well, wasn't he? And before Frankfurt kind of swooped in as well. I was really looking forward to seeing him at Bremen, obviously with Weiser on the other side as well. I thought that would have been a fantastic pair of wing backs as well for them. But obviously it wasn't quite to be for Werder. But obviously for me, it's a really good signing for Frankfurt. And I think we will see him start, maybe not straight away, but I definitely think he will get into that first team eventually. Yeah. But just one more I want to discuss before we move on to the match day. I mean, it's the transfer that didn't happen, really. I mean, obviously, this morning it looked as though we were going to have one of the marquee signings of the Bundesliga, really, with obviously 30-year-old Isco, Champions League winner with Real Madrid, probably, 3-4 times, Spanish international. It looked like he was going to be rocking up in the east side of Berlin, didn't it? But unfortunately, it didn't quite happen. So what can you tell us about that, Peter? Why did this deal not quite get over the line in the end?
After Isco passed his medical, he passed with flying colors. The final negotiations between the Union Berlin administrative team, which is led by Oliver Runert, a very capable and competent managing director, an excellent managing director. He's had a hell of a transfer window. Issa Laidouni has come in, the Tunisian midfielder. Also Josip Joranovic and Jerome. We were talking about Jerome Roussillon. He had, I think, a very impressive debut midweek. Yeah. So Runert has strengthened this side while still maintaining a plus transfer balance carrying over from the summer for about 17 million euros. He could have made a splurge for Isco and put him on, say, 200,000 euro a week salary or something like that. But I believe what did it in the end is that he thought to himself, you know what? If Isco proves a dud, and I have this guy stuck on my payroll, and my payroll is loaded, and do I really need him? I mean, Randy Khedira can run the 3-5-2. We've not seen this 4-4-2 we were talking about with Urs Fischer last time. Yeah. He hasn't really used it. He's stuck with his 3-5-2. Yeah. I suppose he just figured, I have the midfielder that I need. I have the buttressing attackers that I need, even though Genki Haraguchi departed for Stuttgart and they didn't really get a replacement. I think that, and Andras Schäfer is hurt, the Hungarian. So we'll see if this was the right move or not. But I think he just said, you know what, I've completed 2 big money signings. That's already got my payroll a little bit more, more bloated than I wanted. And I don't want to give in to this player's representatives, his agents, and show that I could be pushed around like this. It's a very, very important part of footballing administration that managers, as we call them in German, the manager is the front office guy and the trainer is the head coach. Yeah. So I always have to keep that in mind when talking to Germans. The managers, they have to put their foot down sometimes when a player's representatives are insisting that he get because as far as I know, they were only discussing, Runert wanted to sign him till the end of the season with an option to extend. The information published by Sportbild today suggested that Isco's representatives wanted a 18-month-long contract and they wanted a hefty salary. And Runert just said no.
Yeah, and I think it would have needed Champions League. Like basically the idea of that signing would have been to qualify for the Champions League and then extend the contract. But that could potentially have disrupted the harmony of the squad, because we've talked a lot before the Union. It's more to do with fight and hard work. We know that the players aren't exactly the marquee signings, but I mean, they're good players who work hard for the team, and you don't know whether Isco would have bought into that. That's the problem.
It's they probably would have had uses for him. They still could very well make the Champions League. They have attained maximum points. They've looked very, very good in all 3 of the fixtures back from the break. Actually, with the odd exception being the Hertha Spiel, in which Hertha kind of stood tall against them for whatever reason. But I mean, they're in second place, and they've attained maximum points. Urs Fischer is not doing any tactical tinkering. He's sticking with his 3-5-2. He's plugging in guys like Kevin Behrens. He's even got Jordan playing a little bit better now. It might be the case that the American starts again. He's got, with Juranovic and Roussillon, 2 more great players for his wingback rotations. So maybe, I think Runot said, we can qualify for the Champions League with the squad that we have. And Rory, how about you give us a little bit of an update on how they're doing in the Pokal? Because
I was just about to mention Juranovic because he actually got the assist for the equaliser. So it was Knopter who got the goal on 12 minutes after Waldschmidt had scored after 5 minutes, and it remains 1-1 as it stands. So going close to 37 minutes gone in that game.
Another assist for Juranovic. Was it another assist?
Yeah.
Was it also a corner or set piece?
I do not know. I will find out for us.
He looks a good player, though. I saw him in the World Cup, and I thought he's a really good signing for. He played for Croatia in the World Cup, and he looked really good. I think they paid about 10 million euros for him, so that's quite big money by Union standard. Well,
what Fischer did is he immediately, his first game, he said that Juranovic is my set piece taker, and midweek he collected an assist off a corner. Yeah. That's amazing that you bring somebody in and you say, I trust you with my set pieces immediately. Barely any time on the training pitch, don't have time to learn the package, don't have time to coordinate with your teammates, but I want you taking my corners. That shows that they really put a lot of thought into that signing.
Yeah, Jeff just about confirming what I was about to say, actually. So he took a short corner and then crossed it in. So
wow.
There you go. 1-1 as it stands there. Just a couple of quick ones then, just before we go into match day review mode. So it looks like, despite some nice headlines for Stuttgart this afternoon and bringing in a couple of players, they will or have lost Armada. I haven't actually seen official confirmation of it yet.
I've not either.
I must admit. So I'm a bit puzzled by that one. So it must be stretching time-wise now, because Palace, I thought, would have got that over the line, but I guess they've got a longer time.
The transfer window doesn't close till midnight over there, right?
Yeah, so they've still got 4 hours, roughly speaking. Yeah. So chances are that will go over the line. I'd be very happy if it didn't. So we shall see. That could be one that goes late on into the evening. I think Mainz have done well from their signings. Ludovic Ayorti from Strasbourg. He started, obviously, the big 5-2 win at the weekend. Defensive reinforcements in Andreas Hanche Olsen, and also another busy transfer window for Augsburg as well, bringing in Kelvin Yeboah and Dion Beljo from a striking point of view, and Croatian defender David Golina. So good moves in there, chaps. Any names I've mentioned that you can pick out? Also, obviously, the move from which obviously we've seen earlier on, Kevin Schlotterbeck going to Bochum. Any other players that I've maybe missed out that we've highlighted as big movers?
I think the Dortmund youngster as well, who moved to Dortmund for 9 million euros as well from Anderlecht. I think Julian Duranvi. He's only 16 years old. I don't know that much about him, but 9 million euros is quite a big outlay from Borussia Dortmund for him. Do you know much about him, Peter? Or?
Perhaps the German press is being a little bit lazy, but they compare him with Jadon Sancho. So he's supposed to be a Sancho-like player. Or a Sancho-like player, Will Sancho was with Dortmund, not necessarily the player that Sancho is now. But that is what they're comparing him to in the German press. I think that the Mainz signings, it was very, very good of Rory to highlight that. Ajorque has really made it a lot easier for his buttressing attackers. When you have a classic 9 like that and he can draw coverage, hey, we're discussing a Karim Onisiwo hat trick coming off this weekend.
We will be.
And then Mark, considering that you're in Bavaria there, in Middle Franconia to be precise, you probably serve as our Augsburg representative. They have 7 new signings. They signed 2 more in the last 24 hours. Incredible. I mean, they have got, I don't know, maybe it's a 50+1 violation. We got to see. But they had another busy window, thanks in large part to this financial backing they're getting from Bolt Football Holdings. So, Mark, you want to tell us about Augsburg signings?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they are a very kind of secretive club, aren't they? I mean, the way they do the business, they just seem to pluck out signings from nowhere, really, don't they? But I mean, quite a few of them, quite a bit of money as well. I think a couple of 4.5 to 5 million euros, which is a decent outlay for a team that aren't even secure in the Bundesliga yet ahead of next season. But let's be honest, Augsburg are used to this position, aren't they? I mean, they know what it's like to be down towards the bottom part of the table. For me, I've already mentioned before, I don't consider them to be likely to go down. It's always possible they could. So I guess they're just building for next season and for the future, you know. And my only problem with Augsburg is that, you know, a lot of these signings are a little bit obscure. And I do believe that, you know, a lot of these signings, they don't come that good. Let's be honest. I mean, obviously, we saw with Ricardo Pepi exactly this time last year, he was signed on that famous deal, really, wasn't he? And I mean, everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing in the Bundesliga. And 5 months later, he was out on loan in Groningen in the mid-table Dutch team. So, you know, we'll have to see. I mean, Yeboah looks quite exciting. I do like the look of him. He's probably the one that strikes me as the most promising of the signings, but we'll just have to see. A few of them played the other day as well against Freiburg, but, you know, they obviously lost that game relatively comfortably, but I'm looking forward to seeing them. And obviously, I'm hoping to get down to Augsburg again before the end of the season, so I'll be able to let you know in more detail how good they are then.
Yep, absolutely good stuff. So we shall move on to our Matchday 18 review. So the official start of the Rückrunde got underway on Friday evening. So Leipzig had the opportunity to put some pressure on current Bundesliga leaders by Munich, and they were able to in what was a rather stifled performance because of the way that Stuttgart, I guess, played. But the game, I guess, separated by one moment of excellence in terms of Szoboszlai's second goal and maybe one moment of, well, pretty garbage goalkeeping as well. So I'll open the floor up to you, Peter. What did Stuttgart do well in terms of stifling the way that Leipzig approached that game and maybe stop them from getting the 3-4 goals that a lot of people were predicting, because they were injury ravaged as well, the away side?
Yeah, I mean, Labadia lined them up in one of the most conservative 5-4-1s you'll ever see. And we got how does one pronounce this Greek's name?
Kastaranas, I believe.
Kastaranas, yes, playing on the right there, with Luca Pfeiffer starting as striker, and Chris Führig, I believe, was on the pitch as well. It was not the greatest game of football, to be honest. I think that the garbage piece of goalkeeping that you and I have alluded to, Florian Müller, really letting that problem in. The new Leipzig 4-2-2-2, which is Marco Rosa's sort of imitation of the system that Julian Nagelsmann used to run when he was in charge of the Red Bulls, needs a little bit more time to gel. I think that Timo Werner and Andre Silva will eventually really gel as a striking tandem. And he has to figure out where Christopher Nkunku goes when he comes back. He'll be maybe a short striker, maybe a roving 10. In any case, space has opened up for him after the injury to Daniel Olmo. It was just a ultra defensive game of football from Stuttgart. They knocked the ball out with a lot of icing clearances. You thought you were watching an ice hockey game for a second there. Not too much to say about it other than that, really.
I was semi-hopeful after the VAR moment presented Stuttgart with the opportunity to get their goal, which Führig unconvincingly slotted home. But then, so that goes in on 68 minutes. But unfortunately, the momentum never really kind of materialized into anything of any kind of relatable chance. And the substitutions that Stuttgart made were done, I guess, in hope rather than expectation of maybe forcing a bit of momentum. They had a bit more of the ball, and they had the ball in more advanced areas than obviously they did in the first half. But yeah, it didn't look particularly likely, and Leipzig probably made it more nervy just because of the fact that it was important for them to win that game to get themselves going. So yeah, we'll kind of move on from that one because as Peter mentioned, it probably wasn't the most exciting game of football, and maybe we will go next on to the Berlin derby, which was another obviously big result for Union, but interesting stories in and around the end of the game as well, with Freddy Bobic being thrown out of Hertha quite quickly afterwards. So, Mark, did you see Bobic being removed from post so quickly? And what did you make of Hertha? That I think they made a lot more of a better effort than they had done in the first two games, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, regarding Bobic, I mean, obviously he came to such fanfare, didn't he, to the Olympiastadion? What was it, 18 months ago or so? And a lot of people thought he was going to be like the perfect manager, really. Obviously, he'd done well previously. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, just his time there was just a complete disaster, really. I mean, the signings were just absolutely woeful. He had some very average players on big wages, I mean, I know he didn't spend quite as much money as what the previous ones had done, obviously, when they brought the likes of Petre and people like that. And he had to offload some of those big signings as well, which you've got to bear that in mind. Some of those players that have failed from the previous regime, he had to offload. But, I mean, for me, it was just a complete disaster, really. I mean, so many people had hopes for him, but he just didn't manage to bring in a good coach. I mean, obviously, even Sandro Schwarz, he was highly rated, wasn't he? But I mean, three wins out of 18 games of football is just not good enough. And for me, before in the Hinrunde, they were actually quite good. I thought performance-wise, they were better than the results that they managed to garner. But the way they've come back after the break has been woeful, in truth. I mean, obviously getting schooled by Bochum in the first game back, and then humiliated by Wolfsburg, and then. I mean, they did well for periods, didn't they, against Union Berlin, who were obviously high on confidence after 2 wins and a good win midweek against Werder Bremen. But for me, they were still well beaten, really. And I think, obviously, by the time they finally got the goal, just on the stroke of half-time, really, via Danilo Dueki. But I mean, Durkee, I should say. Check my pronunciation on that one. But yeah, I mean, even if you look at the XGs, I mean, they only managed 0.8, which is absolutely woeful, really, in a home game. It's just not good enough. And the way they're setting up for games just isn't right, is it? Just the team isn't working. They tried a few different combinations. Richter came into the team and he didn't do very much. Dodi Lukebakio's early season form seems to be looking beyond him. And I think I said, Peter, in our last show, I think I surprised a few people by saying I thought Hertha would go down, just because I thought that there was a chance that the performances would drop off from the Hinrunde, and that's exactly what's happened, basically. And Bobic deserved to go in the end. He couldn't justify staying for me. Would you agree with that, Peter, or being a bit harsh there on?
No, not at all. I also picked Hertha to go down on our preview show that we did earlier in the month. And oh, good Lord! I mean, I could talk about Hertha all night. I have to try and get this information out concisely. Essentially, what happened on Saturday? It's hard to talk about the football match. Football match was not. I mean, they neutralized each other in midfield. Doeki is the way I like to pronounce the Dutchman's name.
Yeah,
some people pronounce it Dookie, which in a American slang just doesn't work. It sounds like he's a piece of excrement. But he was, I like him. He's now scored 3-headed goals. And so he's poised for a great Rückrunde. Hertha stood tall in many areas during the match, but the match is not the story. The match is this tsunami that happened after the match. Freddy Bobic was probably the most in-demand German football manager after his time at Frankfurt, because he was credited with building the Eintracht Frankfurt that eventually ascended to the Champions League. He was so famous for cutting up bait, the way he sold off the Buffelherde of Sebastian Haller, Ante Rebic, and Luka Jovic. He was considered to be the most, just this economical genius. And as a matter of fact, he was being linked with Oliver Bierhoff's position after Germany was eliminated from the World Cup. He was supposed to be the German national team's new director. They brought in Rudi Völler as a placeholder until the Euros in 2024, but Bobic was supposed to be the man. His career may be over now. I mean, what we saw from Bobic when he came into Hertha, almost like a megalomaniacal personality, he removed all of these people from the front office, brought in all of his own people, dismissed any other potential decision makers like Arne Friedrich and literally, almost a dozen others. And his transfer policy was putrid. I mean, the man, you talk about him having to sell off the mistakes of the Jürgen Klinsmann era. Basically, what he was doing is he was selling off his own mistakes. And so what happened? And I've never seen anything like this in the world in all my years of, I'm the old man in the show here, so I've been following German football for a couple decades. 48 hours before the close of the transfer deadline, they fire their chief personnel executive. Sunday, they roll. Look, as a writer, I'm exhausted. I've written so much about Hertha in the last few days on Bulinews. It's ridiculous. I mean, they introduce the new managerial team on Sunday and say, okay, Bobic said last week, I'm done with transfers, not bringing in any more transfers, even though he had a little bit of money to work with. So that's the main reason why they fired him. They bring in these two new guys, have no idea what they're doing, and they've had Hertha in the last 48 hours have seen at least 4 transfers collapse. I mean, that's just what we know about. In most cases, they've been, there's other sources that were reporting they were after 8, 9, 10 players that they couldn't get because no one was going to play ball with this green administration team that just got in the office. I mean, the amount of organizational disarray in that office. If you think you've seen a shit show in your life, I mean, that word doesn't even do it justice, I'm sure. And they were being bullied. Did you hear about this Dodi Lukebakio stuff? They were being bullied to sell Dodi Lukebakio and all of this. I mean, you can't. The business of football, it may not be as interesting to others as it is to me, but from a business perspective, what would be a good analogy? This would be like, I just don't know. I mean, it depends on what kind of business you want to talk about. Maybe you fire an academic dean 2 days before the semester starts, or you fire a restaurant manager just before the holidays hit, or you give God knows what. I mean, this is I've never seen anything like it. Hertha are definitely going down now. Despite the fact that the team put a good performance in on Saturday, they're just this is a mess. This is an absolute mess. I mean, Schalke have hope now of avoiding automatic relegation because of what's going on with this team now. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think for any Hertha viewers that are maybe watching this evening or subsequently, we'll mercifully move on to another game and something perhaps that was more about the football. So we'll come to spectacular minds, shall we? And the 05ers getting 5 against Bochum. Really quick start. Hat-trick hero Onisiwo, obviously scorer of 3 goals and involved in the other 2. Mainz just got out of Bochum from the start and had the game won after half an hour. Mark, what do you reckon to Onisiwo's form? He's having a bit of a late blossom, isn't he, basically? But, I mean, there were elements of luck to the second goal where he kind of stumbles into the box and loses the ball, but Widmer, slides it in. But he'll get. So, yeah, he's been a real plus in Mainz, back back where they want to be, and looking ahead to obviously to tomorrow's Pokal match as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's 7 league goals for him this season in 18 games, which is really, really good going for him because, as we've said before, he's more of a supporting act in most cases. He's not known to be a striker that gets bags of goals over the years. But, I mean, a hat-trick for him is a massive event. I think he's probably not had many of them before. Maybe it's his first Bundesliga hat-trick, in fact, I would imagine. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, he finally managed to seal the deal and right towards the end, didn't he, in extra time. But, I mean, it was a great moment for him. I mean, he's one of those players, I really like his style of play. He's a real hustle and bustle kind of forward. He always gets stuck in. I think he very much typifies the Bo Svensson style at Mainz. And I just think he's really had a bit of a late career blossom, as you say, under Bo Svensson. I would say this is not something that's come completely out of the blue. I think he had a solid season last season alongside Johnny Burkhardt as well, who obviously hasn't managed to continue the form this season, unfortunately, due to injuries and a lack of form and things like that. But I think obviously maybe the signing of Ajorca as well could even push him even further too, because he looked like he was a good kind of target man to hold it up, and he's got a bit of quality up there. Again, I think they signed him for a little bit of money as well, probably quite big wages too for Mainz. And, I think they look a good side again now. And I think obviously ahead of tomorrow's match against Bayern Munich, Bayern won't look forward to going there because when Mainz get in form at home and they've got that good support behind them, it's not a big stadium there in Mainz, but they can really get a good atmosphere when they fill it to the rafters, And I think also Bayern Munich have lost on the last 2 trips to Mainz as well. So they, obviously Julian Nagelsmann might be having a few sleepless nights tonight ahead of that game, because obviously they are expected to win that trophy this year. It's been a couple of years since they won the Pokal. And, there is a little bit of pressure on Bayern to win it. But as for Mainz, I just thought they were brilliant in this game to do the double over Bochum after obviously beating them on the opening day of the season. To the likes of Widmer, looks like he's coming back into form after, I think he played a few games in the World Cup as well for Switzerland, didn't he? So, I don't think he had a very good Hinrunde, Widmer. He's a player that I really rate in general, but he didn't have the best Hinrunde. But he's looked good since we came back, obviously last weekend. And yeah, I mean, obviously Bochum were well beaten in the game, but they did manage to get a couple of consolations, didn't they? Which is always good to see, really. And they did provide an attacking threat in the game and eventually getting goals via Malong and Masovic. But I mean, for them, it wasn't the best performance. They relied too much on the home form. That's the problem with Bochum for me. They don't pick up many points away from home. And if they are to stay up, which I still think they will do, they will have to win most of the home games. And, they probably still need another 5-6 wins to maintain the status. And I believe they can get that at home. But it was Mainz's day on Saturday, wasn't it, really?
Yep, absolutely. Peter, anything that you picked up from the game from a tactical point of view that Bo Svensson employed, or was it just get out and, use momentum and win the game early?
Well, we talked about what an important role Ajorca plays in drawing coverage. And Onisiwo's late career form surge, we're really, really happy to see that as German fans. He's a quiet, shy Austrian. And he scored the first Austrian hat trick in the Bundesliga for over 10 years. And it was his first Bundesliga hat trick. Mm-hmm. Only thing I can say, and I do like both of the teams. I think that both Mainz and Bochum have what it takes to stay up. I really like the managers at Mainz right now. Martin Schmidt, the former Augsburg trainer, is working together with Christian Heidel. They got that Ajorca deal done. They got the Hensche Olsen deal done. It was also a very good piece of transfer business. All I can do is repeat what I said earlier. Don't miss tomorrow night's Pokal match, football fans. It's going to be a lot of fun. And my tip is Mainz for the upset.
Good stuff. Before we come to any of the questions, which we will try and get to before the end of the show, maybe another game that was of interest, 2 teams certainly not on form, was Gladbach eventually putting 4 past Hoffenheim as they sink lower and lower, it seems. But was it a 4-1 scoreline, gents? Obviously, Gladbach showing ruthless precision via the form of Hoffmann and Stindl later on in the match, but kind of still get the feeling that 4-1 doesn't necessarily mean that Gladbach are back, so to speak.
Yeah. So sorry. I'll just have my ideas first. Yeah. I mean, even if you look at the XG, I mean, 2.5 for Hoffenheim against 2.1 for Gladbach. I mean, it's not often you see that in a 4-1 win, is it? And I think that pretty much answers your question, really, Rory. I mean, Hoffenheim were dominant for periods in this game, but they're not taking the chances at the minute, are they? And things just aren't going right for them. I mean, obviously they did get 2 goals the previous midweek against your boy Stuttgart, but in general, Kramaric isn't looking back on his top form, really. You know, he's had a poor season in general, Kramaric, and he's looking very, very... He used to be so prolific, didn't he? But this season, for me, he just hasn't had that touch in front of goal, and it looks as though he's lost a little bit of confidence as well. I didn't think he had a particularly great World Cup either, despite a very good World Cup for Croatia in general. I think Kramaric only ended up getting 1 or 2 goals as a starting striker. He didn't look particularly... I think both of those goals came in that game against Canada as well, so he wasn't overly impressive there. Kasper Dolberg is an interesting signing, but he's not one that really massively excites me in truth. I mean, he's never been that prolific, has he? I think, obviously, highly rated player all his career, but he's never managed to hold down a starting spot. So, you know, I didn't think he was great in the game, in truth, Dolberg. But, I mean, I guess it's positive that they're creating chances. I mean, Kadalabek and Angelino, they do provide that quality from the flanks, don't they? They provide that width to the side. But my worry is that they're not taking the chances, and defensively they look really, really poor at the moment. Like they're just shipping goals left, right, and centre. And, you know, obviously Brooks came in for this game. I think Brooks...
I was going to mention that as a writer,
a really good sign as well. From
as a writer of an Americans in the Bundesliga column, a deep scout column in which I watch all of the games, all of the minutes. I've been writing this column for 4 years. You can also find that on Bulinews. I have not missed a minute of action for any American that has played in the in the Bundesliga for 4 years. I was excited to have John Anthony Brooks back because he is one of my favorite players. He's, you know, we talked about this before, the American heritage players who are sons of U.S. soldiers are very, very popular in Germany because they're kind of, you know, emblematic of what our country stands for. Mm-hmm. And with the exception of Mark, who has just a wonderful head, you know, to head a football either defensively away or into the back of the net. John Anthony Brooks has a perfect head to head a football.
Yeah.
Okay, just behind you. I'll give you. You're number one. You got an excellent football. John Anthony Brooks had a terrible game. He was at fault for 2 of the Gladbach goals. Hoffenheim are really bad, and I don't know why. And the fans don't know why either. The fans booed them off the pitch. The fans were singing, "Wir wollen euch kämpfen Sie." We want you to fight, because they weren't fighting. Now, there was a lot of overachieving from Gladbach in this one. You guys brought that up. That's correct. Pardon me. But Hoffenheimer, Brighton Rider's going to get sacked within a couple of weeks. I don't know what it is with this team. Nobody can make it work. Hannes can't make it work. Oh, there's a question.
Yeah. I think we'll come on to that one. Yeah. So go on, Peter. I'll let you start then. So who would you say the best fans you witnessed then?
Okay, since I heaped praise on Mainz, I need to remind everybody that I'm from Kaiserslautern, and I'm not supposed to say nice things about Mainz. If we're back in the top flight next year, I won't say anything nice about Mainz. My hometown fans, I believe, are, of course, the best. But pretty much everybody who's in the league now, with the obvious exceptions, Hoffenheim, Leipzig, to a certain extent, Wolfsburg, the Bundesliga fans are the greatest fans in the world. I would recommend going to any of those stadiums with those 3 exceptions.
Yeah. And possibly Leverkusen as well. I think they don't have the absolute best, but a little bit better than the other 3, I would agree. But
and Wolfsburg are getting better. You see, these company teams, they used to be reviled in the same way that Hoffenheim and Leipzig are. But if the fans get involved, and the fans really do bring the German culture that we want to showcase to the world, we'll come around to them. We'll come around.
Yeah. For me, I think I'm going to go for Werder Bremen. I went to, when Nuremberg played last time in the Bundesliga, I went to quite most of the games that season. And Werder Bremen, wow. They were amazing. Like, considering that Bremen to Nuremberg is probably 500 kilometers, maybe. It's a long way, like 350 miles or so for you miles measurers as well. But it maybe even a bit further. It could even be 600 or 700 kilometers, but it's a fair distance. And just they must have brought, I think, 6,000 and never stopped singing from before the game started until half an hour after. And it was not only the atmosphere, it was so friendly as well. I just thought they were fantastic. Like, we were all talking to them after the game and having a beer with them. And another mention I've got to give to Schalke as well, because I know that Nuremberg have a friendship with Schalke, so it's a little bit different. But I mean, the atmosphere was just one of the most incredible atmospheres I've ever been to in any football match when Nuremberg played Schalke. Like, literally, they play, you probably know the song Die Legende lebt, Peter, and they literally played this song, The Legend Lives On, or whatever. And basically, they played this song, and it was just amazing. All the fans in the stadium were singing it, and it was, wow. Yeah, it was literally really incredible to see that. And as I say, the pre and post match atmosphere was incredible as well for that one.
As I've said before, please, if you come to a Bundesliga game, everybody is more than welcome. Come to the stadium a couple hours early, chat with the locals, see what's going on, public service events, things like that, and stay afterwards and hang with the locals. You won't be disappointed. You will experience something like you never have before.
Yeah. And a point from Dave as well, our Football League Weekly person. Yeah, you said it earlier about going to Augsburg again. I hope you still have the FCA card. Yeah, I don't know if you've been there, Peter, but it's like a famous thing for Augsburg. If you want to buy a drink at Augsburg, you need your FCA card. Like, you can't just buy drinks there. You need to buy the official club card, and then you need to put money on it, and then you can buy a drink. Yeah, so it's a little bit, it's a little bit special, really, isn't it?
I love the Augsburg fans too, and they also during the pandemic, when they were not supposed to be singing, put on some great drum work with kitchen utensils. It was fantastic.
They were great. When I went there, I didn't expect the atmosphere would be so good, but they really have a proper ultras band, 10, 12,000 behind the goal, and the general atmosphere is good, and the pre-match atmosphere is really good as well. So it's recommended to go there as well. I have to say that as a Bavarian, but
Good stuff. Just before we finish off, gents, obviously the kind of headline of our show is the return of the title race. And we've not really talked about it because we've been so busy talking about other things. Because of the draw, or because of the 3 draws that Bayern have had back-to-back, is the title race back on? Peter, you've already kind of given your dark horse shout for Frankfurt. Obviously, Leipzig did get that important win. Dortmund found a way to win against Leverkusen, by hook or by crook on the counter-attack as well. It was a good weekend, actually, for counter-attacking teams, I'd say. Obviously, Freiburg won as well, and it is tight at the top. Is this another false dawn, or are we maybe going to see a bit more of a intriguing Rook run there ahead of us for the next 17 matches?
I think so. I think that Frankfurt and Leipzig would still be my only 2 contenders at this point. I like Freiburg's response to the Wolfsburg thrashing. I think they're steadily on the uptick. I really like, I'm shocked by what Union did in the transfer window, but I don't see them as title contenders. That's my 3-horse race.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely on. Bayern Munich, as you mentioned, it's not only the fact they're not winning, but their XG, they're not creating the chances they need to win games as well. I think, as you mentioned, they got just over 1 for both of the last 2 home games. That's not the Bayern Munich team that we know, And I think another point with Bayern is that, Choupo-Moting is showing himself, for me, the last few games, that he's not that elite striker that they were hoping that he was becoming in the Hinrunde, really. For me, I think he was woeful against Köln, absolutely woeful in that game, and I didn't think he was that much better against Eintracht, to be honest with you.
He's Nagelsmann, as we were talking about, he needs to sort this centralized midfield link-up play out. And one of the problems with Choupo is that he is very much a deep drop striker. And so you've got Choupo dropping deep, holding the ball up, fair enough. But then who supplies the link-up play? Is it Musiala? Is it Müller? Is it both? They tried both against Frankfurt, and it didn't work. All right. Both of these got very creative players, very incredibly skilled players, but they can't drive the link-up play with Choupo dropping so deep. So we'll have to see what happens when Sadio Mane returns, of course. But I think 3 draws from Bayern, very, very poor XG. Nagelsmann has been beaten tactically in the last 2 matches, and I think Bo Svensson is going to beat him tactically again tomorrow. Once that happens, gentlemen, you don't want to miss the Bundesliga. That's, this Bayern era is going to come to an end at some point, and I think it's quite possible that it comes to an end this year, and that's what I'm going to stay tuned.
You have to ask about his job security a little bit as well, Julian Nagelsmann, because I know last season, having spoken to a few Bayern fans, they weren't not so much disappointed, but they weren't exactly overwhelmed by him, last season. And then this season, for me, has been a step back a little bit. I mean, I know the big thing was they lost Lewandowski, that was a massive point, but they did spend a lot of money as well. The likes of Mazraoui, Gravenberg, De Ligt, all came into the club, and then obviously more Mane, of course, I miss him. So money was spent, they're still top of the league. They're still in the Champions League, and they're still in the cup at the moment. But the way the form's going, it's not been that impressive. But knowing our luck, they'll batter Mainz and then batter Wolfsburg and then batter Paris in the Champions League as well, and then everything will be fine again. But obviously things at the moment aren't looking that rosy for him. But if they do lose tomorrow against Mainz, then pressure's really on ahead of the Wolfsburg away game on Saturday for me, or on Sunday, or whenever it is. But another question as well from Ballum. In the Regionalliga DJK Filzing in Bavaria at home on the 11th of February. He might be able to go to this. Yeah, I think Ballum, you have to come to Germany and we'll go to watch DJK Filzing. You're a big fan of them, I know that. So yeah, to be honest with you, I don't even know where I would imagine it's a village. I've never heard of the village itself, to be honest, but I don't know if it's in the Oberbayern or the Franconia area of Bavaria. But I mean, I'd definitely be interested in going to a Regionalliga game. But we'll have to see just how close it is for that one. And if it's nearby, there's a chance I will go down on the 11th of February. But, if it's somewhere around Munich, it might be a little bit far to go for a day, possibly.
Yeah, some chat from our good friend Irish BVB as well, stating that only a few big away matches left: Freiburg, Frankfurt, and Austrian Energy Drink games at home. One away game left: Freiburg, and then Frankfurt and RB games at home.
Shall I offer up some thoughts on Dortmund? We really haven't talked about them.
Yeah, we can certainly do it. Absolutely, for the sake of Irish BVB.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. They've taken maximum points. It's interesting what Terzic has been doing tactically. The first match against Augsburg, what a mess! You had Salih Özcan operating as the solo 6, and it just felt so bad for him. He was a chicken with his head cut off. Now he's tried Emre Can at the position, who did an exceptional job against Leverkusen. In my midweek column, I put together a projected lineup for Dortmund that I think would just be the best that they could possibly do, maybe even contend for the title with it. And that would be a back 3. Let's put Hummels, Schlotterbeck, and Süle in a back 3. We'll put Ryerson and perhaps Marius Wolf, perhaps Rafael Guerrero, whoever we can find as the wing backs.
Mm-hmm.
We have Jude Bellingham running the midfield as a solo 6 because he is the epitome of a box-to-box player. And Gio Reyna and Jamie Bino-Gittens should be starting on the wings at this point. I don't know why they are not, with Sebastian Haller, one of the greatest comeback stories of this
absolutely
setting a London striker. Hey, they're back. I think, and I've said that a lot over the past 10 years, but I think that this time, okay, they've pulled me back in. I may be out again after next weekend. We'll see, but they pulled me back in. I need some more stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff's looking ahead a little bit to Wolfsburg FCB matchup this coming weekend, and whether we will get maybe a kind of reminder as to who Bayern are and maybe what realistically Wolfsburg can achieve this season. So do we think that will be the case this weekend, or will we see another 1-1 draw?
Wolfsburg really charged out of the gate. They looked like they were the hottest team in the Bundesliga, but then they lost to Bremen last weekend. They sort of fell into that old Wolfsburg habit of running out of ideas in the final third and just really playing unimaginative vertical long balls and things like this. Let's see. There's a live match between Wolfsburg and Union Berlin going on right now. If Wolfsburg drop this match and have lost 2 in a row, I'm not thinking that Niko Kovac's return to his old club is going to go all that well, irrespective of what happens to Bayern tomorrow. Problem with Wolfsburg is they've sometimes accrued points by still playing ugly football, even though the first 2 matches back from the break, they were incredible.
Yeah,
but it happened against Bremen this weekend that they just dropped it. So that's my thoughts on the matter. We'll have to wait and see. We still got Pokal matches to draw upon.
This is very true. I think we've pretty much gone through everything that we wanted to tonight and gone through the majority of questions that have come in. So it might be a good place to bring the show to a close this evening. Just checking up on the score. It is still 1-1 in the Pokal between Union and Wolfsburg, getting close to an hour gone. No substitutions yet either in that matchup. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes the distance or not. So thank you all to everyone that's tuned in this evening, that's asked questions and watched along with us. It's been great to go everything. Hard to sometimes condense everything that's been going on recently into an hour's worth of show. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. And so I shall gladly hand over to Mark to wrap up this evening's show.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you enjoyed what you saw today, then remember to check out our Twitter, which is obviously @OverTheBarFB and @OverTheBarExtra. Also check out our main site, which is otbfootball.net. And of course, Petre and Runa's brilliant site, Bulinews, as well. Don't forget about that one. But obviously our OTB site is not only Bundesliga related, it's football in general. So we've got a lot of our focus is on the Football League as well. So we also have a live show every week, which comes on Wednesday evenings for the Championship, League 1 and League 2. So remember to check in for that as well, especially if you're a fan of lower league English football, which, to be honest, has a lot of similarities to German football for me as well. You know, it's more for the purists rather than the Premier League, definitely. And yeah, obviously, finally remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We are slowly growing as well. You know, we've had a successful start to the Rückrunde as well in terms of views and also subscriptions. So yeah, keep following us and tell your friends about us as well. But yeah, thanks again to Peter for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you again for the Fantasy Football Roundup on Thursday. So see you then, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you.